Hi, my name is Tim, welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at how we can make you a better guitar player for 2021. First thing that we're going to look at is when you're practicing, you should always be practicing with an amplifier. You should be practicing plugged in, either with an amplifier or you plug in through your computer or your laptop, but you should always be plugged in. And the reason you should be plugged in is that playing acoustically, playing an electric guitar acoustically hides a multitude of sins. It hides unwanted string noise, it'll hide rogue buzzing if you're not fretting properly. It can even hide things like poor vibrato and slightly out of tune bending. So you should always be plugged in, you should always be playing with an amplifier or some sort of amplification. Number two is you should not be noodling. You should not just pick up the guitar and just start noodling around, just playing all the same old stuff that you already know. Unless of course you're an absolute beginner. If you're an absolute beginner, then I highly recommend noodling, just picking up the guitar whenever you can and just playing. For the first sort of 6 to 9 months, that is brilliant because it just gets your hands and your fingers just used to having a guitar in them. But if you're past that, no noodling at all. Another idea is you should always have some sort of teacher. Now, not necessarily you go to formal lessons, you sit down for an hour or half an hour and he gives you or she gives you things to practice and learn, and you've got to produce what you've done for the last week or two. You can have a teacher, anyone can be your teacher, anyone at all. Anyone who plays an instrument, the guitar, can be your teacher. And with lockdown and back in this pandemic thing, it's difficult to get out to teachers, but there are so many people that are offering lessons online on Skype, via Zoom or anything like that. And you'd be surprised, actually, some of the most highly revered guitar players are offering online guitar lessons. Now, they cost a lot. Josh Smith was offering guitar lessons. Mike Stern, fantastic jazz guitar player, was offering Skype guitar lessons or Zoom guitar lessons for an hour or 55 minutes, and it was reasonably, it was like $120, $125, which is just incredible value. Eric Johnson, amazing guitar player, giving mini guitar lessons online. You should seek out other guitar players who are better than you, and usually they're more than happy to give you pointers and tips and stuff. It doesn't have to be formal guitar lessons, but find yourself some kind of teacher or mentor. Really, really important. The other thing is you should always be setting goals for your practice sessions. You should sit down, you should have long-term goals, medium-term goals, and short-term goals. Long-term goals could be you want to learn a song from start to finish. That's your long-term goal. Your medium-term goal could be to learn the structure and the chords and know the harmony of what's going on behind it. And your short-term goal could be you learn the intro riff. That's just a simple example, and that will help mark your progress. Another thing that everybody should be doing to improve your playing is you should be playing to a metronome. And I know everybody hates playing to a metronome, everybody finds it boring and it takes the fun out of playing, and that is true if you don't know how to play with a metronome. So there's loads of different ways that you can play with a metronome. The first way, if we want to look at improving our playing, let's say for example, you're trying to nail the A Dorian scale. So you set up a click, you play through the A Dorian scale as slowly as you can. Let's say quarter notes at 70 BPM. What you then start to do is you just take the tempo up until you find a ceiling where you just cannot break through. And then what you do is you knock it down 10 BPM and you play for a week at that tempo. So whatever it may be, for example, let's say that your ceiling is 8th notes at 100 BPM. When we say your ceiling, we mean that that's kind of where you start to make mistakes. You start to trip over, your fingers start to trip up, you start getting bum notes. That's your ceiling. So what you do then is you take that tempo from 100 down to 80 or 90 and you play at that tempo for a week. And then what you do not move the click. You stick at that click for a week. And then what you do after that is after the week, you then bump it up 20 BPM. So if you'll go from 90 to 110 and you do the same thing. Play it for a week at that new tempo. Do not move it up. You can move it down, but you cannot move it up. After the next week, you bump it up another 20. Then you bump it up and you just keep bumping it up until you find that you're playing ridiculous speeds. And it's a really good way to measure your progress. So that's just one idea to play with a metronome. You should always be playing with a metronome. And again, going back to having a teacher, a good teacher will teach you how to play with a metronome. So that's metronome. Important. You should always be dividing your practice time into little quadrants, little sections. So you should do a little section on chords, a little section on scales and arpeggios, a section on repertoire, and a section on jamming, whether that's to a backing track or to a song that's on an album that you like. And then what you do is you rotate those little practice sessions. So you can do 10 minutes on chords, 10 minutes on scales and arpeggios, 10 minutes on repertoire, and then 10 minutes on just sort of jamming, having fun. And then what you do, you just rotate that depending on how long you've got for your practice time. If you've got an hour, you could divide it into 15-minute sections. Or you divide it into 10-minute sections or 5-minute sections, and you just keep rotating them. If If you've got longer, you just keep rotating more. If you've got less time, let's say some people might only have 5 minutes a day. In that case, you're going to do a minute on chords, a minute on scales and arpeggios, a minute on repertoire, and then a minute and having fun, and you've got 1 minute left over. I have seen people make improvements on their guitar playing with only 5 minutes practice every day. And it's more important for you to play every day than it is, say, 2 hours just on a Saturday. You will practically see no improvement if you just play once a week for a couple of hours. So every day you should be playing. Another thing is you should learn how to get good tone out of your amp. Not just your amp, but other people's amps if you ever get to meet up with other people. Getting a good tone is so important. It's like your thumbprint, your fingerprint of your guitar playing. It's so important that you can get a good tone, not only out of your amp, other amps that you might have to use if you go to a studio or a rehearsal room, or you play a gig and you have to use the gig's backline, they might insist on it. Good tip for guitar players is you need more mid-range than you think. If you think of the spectrum of sound, like here you have the bass drum down here, bass guitars at the bottom, right at the top you've got things like cymbals and hi-hats, maybe female vocals or backing vocals are sitting at the top. Right in the middle, it's this nice little spot where the guitar lives, and if you can push through that middle, you'll cut through the mix and be heard without being loud. So that's a good tip. More mid-range, you need more mid-range than you think. There's some ideas that you can get, you can implement into your practicing, implement into your playing right now, and these will all have a marked improvement on your guitar playing. If you want to see improvement for the year, for 2021, even just implementing a couple of these, you're gonna see improvements. So thank you very much for sticking around. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. There's a little button down below. You can give the video a like, it really does help me out, and I will see you on the next video. Whenever that may be, I hope it's soon. Thank you, bye-bye.